I think it's also worth mentioning the performance of Matheus Nunes from that win against Bournemouth. We spoke before the match actually that how Cousinov could be the man to sort of battle with Antoine Semenyo at right back, and instead Guardiola went with Nunes, but he did quite well. Didn't really have an awful lot to do defensively to sort of prevent Semenyo doing his thing. He did quite well overall. How impressed were you by Nunes at right back?
Yeah, the occasional like sloppy pass, but overall defensively, that's what I've been impressed by Nunes because obviously when you watch the Club World Cup and so on, and even last season when he started playing right back, what impressed with Nunes was those long bursting runs, that pace he's got to overlap and so on. But I think the last several games for Nunes have been impressive defensively. That's what, of course, there was a sort of head loss moment for Brian for the penalty. But other than that, he's been really consistent defensively. Semenyo, they were best in the league shouts for Semenyo, recently. He's been absolutely unplayable at times and he barely got a look in. And look, I know, Bournemouth didn't utilise him perfectly, but he still got the ball and Nunes still did his job really, really well. And that physicality he's got, and once again, we talk about the requirements these days. Like Nunes is a big enough fella. He's not like 6'5", but he's pushing 6'4", if not around 6'4". Incredible pace, really, really good stride, great lungs. And of course, naturally, he's going to be pretty good technically because he's a midfielder. I think he needs to improve a little bit on that front, but his absolute desire and his focus to improve, I've been pretty critical of him because I felt he's a little bit below the standards, and I thought and I said I'd be amazed if he ever made it at Manchester City, and I feel a bit of an idiot to be honest because I mean he clearly has the desire and the hunger to improve, and Pep is more or less said it in press conferences that if essentially if he wants that role, if he wants to be a great right back, it's there. It's entirely up to him because he has all the tools, and you know you cast your mind back to Kyle Walker when he first joined, and look, he wasn't technically the best in the side, and he became more than competent. In fact, pretty good on the ball by the end of his spell at Manchester City. And there's no reason Nunes can't improve technically further, and there's no reason he can't improve defensively more, and because he's a different player entirely than a year ago defensively. So when you look, at the pair of them, Nico Riley, Nunes, neither of them were fullbacks, but both of them have got great physicality. Both of them are technically solid, and they're both improving defensively week on week. You look at the market for right backs, and you see Livermore quoted for 90 million. Like I think Nunes has had a better season, and that's not even me putting my blue tinted specs on. I think it's just genuinely true. And you think, look, if Nunes was, a 22-year-old English fullback, and like it's given the market, you'd be asking people asking 60, 70 million for him. And you think, well, he's actually already here. Then you've got the defensive stability of Kusanov if you want someone more solid. I think City, if Nunes carries on with this same trajectory, and it's only been 10 games, I know, but if he carries on this way, they won't go back to the market. They'll think, well, this guy can do it. And I think it's really encouraging because all across the pitch yesterday, and particularly Nunes and Araya, there were big green ticks next to their names.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned it there about sort of the desire that he's got to impress at City. I think that's coming across quite a lot now at City. Some of the players might be a bit down, thinking, "Oh, I'm not winning my spot in midfield," which is what he
Yeah,
bought for. But he's actually coming in and he's really relishing this challenge of he wants to prove himself at City. He wants to get in this team, and he's doing really well at right back.
I
And
think. Sorry to interrupt,
yeah, it's
mate. I
fine.
just it's just you just reminded me of something. Pep keeps talking about players being coachable at the moment.
Mm.
That's his buzzword. You probably noticed it in the press conferences too. Everyone's coachable. Well, some players are coachable. I don't think that's a coincidence. Pep knows what he's doing. Like he's not just saying that because he's learned it. It's his favorite word. No, I think he's saying it because he's trying to make a point. And what struck me yesterday when you look across, Manchester City side and compared to previous years when you had all this experience, and of course everyone needs to learn, but you had players that you could rely on. You had, elite level players playing. You had Edison, he'd known for years. You Kyle Walker, he'd known for years. He knew his job down to a T. He could turn up blindfolded and do his job. And Nathan Nake, and then you had Rodri and Gundogan and De Bruyne, Bernardo, Mara, all these players who just knew the role inside out. You go look at Manchester City now, and it's all projects and young players. And like you look at, obviously you ignore sort of Diaz and Vardiol and Donnarumma, but you look at Nunes, O'Reilly, Nico Gonzalez, Shirky, Doku, even Phil Foden's learned a sort of new role centrally. Then you look at the bench and you go Reinders, Savino, Marmoush, Ait Nori, Trafford, Rico Lewis, Kusanov, Bob, people like that. They've all got a lot to learn, and they're all very much in the, will they make it? Will they not make it? There's a lot of potential there, and there's only a few players in the entire squad where you think, well, yeah, they're nailed on. And I think Guardiola keeps saying this coachable thing for a reason. I think he's challenging the players. Whoever wants to learn, whoever wants to grab the shirt, because it's open. Like this squad right now, there's only a few players in that team who are going to get into it, guaranteed week in, week out. And that is probably, maybe Diaz and Vardy have sort of locked it down at centre back, maybe. But then Donnarumma seems to be, then Haaland, and then Rodri if he's fit. You'd say maybe Phil, but even not necessarily him. It's really open right now, and I think Pep is sending a message to those players. Whoever wants to learn, whoever wants to be coached, whoever wants to lock in, there's a good chance that you're going to be a starter for me. And I think Nunes and I think Nico Gonzalez, he talks an awful lot about, and of course people like Nico O'Reilly, they're obviously coachable. Pep obviously likes them, and look, I think Pep will accept the odd mistake here and there, and Nunes and so on have made them if you want to learn and if you show the right attitude, because no one exactly, no one's perfect at the moment in this City side. Maybe a Haaland, you probably give him the credit of that, but you know there is a chance for so many people, and I think Pep is choosing his words carefully right now, and I think he's sending messages to all these people, and by the sound of it, people like Nunes, he has his head screwed on, and he wants it here, and his third season at Manchester City now, and he's got a real good chance.
Yeah, you're right. I think and if Nunes is sort of performing in the way he is the right back spot really his to lose at the moment? Is he Guardiola's first choice for that position with Cousinov and Lewis sort of slightly further back in the pecking order now?
Well, the good thing is that Kuznetsov was really good before his injury too.
Mm.
He looked so solid defensively. A little bit more limited in terms of the attacking output. Um, but you've got two very different options there. Kuznetsov does a more than passing Kyle Walker impression. Not quite Kyle Walker, but that same defensive instincts. But Nunes obviously has the edge in terms of his ability to drive past people and get forward and overlap and so on. And he's showing signs of improvement. So absolutely, I mean, I think Nunes is more obviously a complete potential fullback. Neither of them. I mean, Nunes is actually a fullback now. I think we need to probably reframe the conversation, because we can argue about the overall ability, but that is a fullback. If you sort of silhouetted him out and just watched how he played as a footballer, no one would question that's a fullback. And I think the fact that used to be midfield, I'm saying used to for a reason because he isn't anymore. He's irrelevant now. Nunes is playing like a good fullback. Can he be a great one? I don't know, but that clearly is a more than competent. In fact, that's a very good fullback. A top. That's a potentially Champions League level fullback. Because he's playing for one of the best sides in the league right now, playing really well, and he just played against one of the best wingers in the league and did really well, and he's done it a few times this season. So yeah, that's a quality fullback. He becomes great if he does it consistently, but that's what he is, and that shirt's his if he wants it.